Single moms raising young men, where y'all at? I have a question. God has been sustaining me in this, but I think about my son as he gets older. I have a 16-year-old son, and I raised him as a single parent. His dad is not involved in his life. Now, I have a total of 4 kids. All of them have the same dad. Their dad was involved in the first three, but he's not around for my son. Once we got divorced, he moved away, never saw him, and we were only married like a year and a half. But nonetheless, he's been in my life for some years, the dad was. But I just want to know, how do you handle raising a 16-year-old son? He doesn't know what it means to have grandparents. He doesn't know what it means to have aunts, uncles, cousins. Both my parents are deceased. Both his father's parents are deceased. All he has is his siblings. And I'm challenged with wondering how, I don't want to say how my son is going to turn out, because he's a very good kid. He's very mannerable. He's very respectable. So as a mother, I've done the best that I could with him. Don't have any problems out of him at all. I've tried to get him into the Boys and Girls Club here in Atlanta, and he was on the wait list almost 5 years. You know, and I get it. I guess it seems like some men just don't want to be involved if they're not their kids. My local church didn't have anything for young men, you know, in that regard. And I'm like, how are you all doing it? And I guess I'll just pose that question. Single mothers, how are you raising young men? Many of you have uncles, male figures in your life. I live in Atlanta, originally from Florida, so none of my family is here. It's just me and my children. How do you do that? I had a cousin's trips with my son, and he got to meet some of his cousins, but he never gets to see them because they live in Texas. So how do you raise a child and not be concerned with how he's going to turn out? You know, when we were kids, we would go to our grandparents' house. We would spend the weekends there. We would hang out with our cousins. And I think there's some kind of social skill that comes from that, some kind of social rivalry that comes from that. My son has never experienced that. And sometimes I wonder about, I don't want to say his development, because like I say, he's a smart kid. He's an AB student, goes to private school. He does really well in that regard. But I just think about the lack of, I guess, grandparents, family, I guess I would say. How do you handle that? And I'm struggling with that right now. And I've asked him a couple of times, kind of when he was younger, how does he feel about his dad not being around? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders. But I know that has to bother him right now at 16, not having his dad around, wanting to know, how is it, Dad, you were there for my other siblings, but you weren't there for me? How do you all handle that? And men, maybe some of you all can step in and help me understand, what is the dynamic with that you'll be there for your other kids. If you have children with a woman, you'll be there for your other kids, but you won't be there for one child or two children. Me and him have no beef, so, you know, let me go ahead and put that on the line. Me and the dad have no beef. Like, we have no issue. We got divorced. It just didn't work. You know, sometimes when you know a person from a very young age, I met her when I was 13, so we've been knowing each other for a very, very long time. When you meet people when you're young, sometimes you just grow apart, and some people mature. Some things that you want when you were younger, it's not what you want now, and it's just, we were both in different spaces. He was still, to me, he was still the same. I just matured. And so I just didn't want to deal with a lot of his foolishness, the jealousy. And I would go to college at night, finishing up my degree. I come home, my son telling me, Mommy, we rode by your school to see if your car was there. And I'm like, what kind of foolishness is that? You don't trust that I'm going to school, but nonetheless. So I just want to know, single parents, and even you dads, maybe there's some single dads out there raising daughters. I won't say sons, because you know how to handle that, but you're raising daughters. How do you handle that when you don't have family that they can interact with to understand what it means to have cousins, aunts, uncles, those type of things? How are you handling it? I just wanted to know the thoughts. And I don't know, he hasn't needed counseling for anything like that. He's never come off of signs of being depressed or having any social issues or anything, because he gets along with his siblings. I've always made sure my children got along. They don't have fights, quarrels, bickering, or any of that. So all of my kids get along. He seems to be doing fine, but I just worry about, not knowing what it means to have a grandparent, not knowing what it means to have a cousin. Like, he knows headwise that he has them, but the time that you spend with relatives, he doesn't know that. What do you all do in a scenario like that? Answer down in the comments. Thank you.